he's still the guy that scares me the most. That's an Eastern Conference scout on Steph Curry. ESPN ran a article the other day, Tim Bontemps, on who is the best American player currently in the NBA. They surveyed 20 coaches, execs, and scouts across the league, and it's the chef. He still scares people the most, and it wasn't even close. Out of the 20 votes, he got 11 of them. Anthony Edwards got 8, and Donovan Mitchell got 1. Now, I think, what this speaks to is the dominance of the international players, right? Giannis, Jokic, Luka, SGA, don't forget, Canadian, right? And I've talked about this many times on the channel. You can blame AAU basketball. My daughter just went through it. Thank God she's done with that because it's bad. It really is bad. But if you have a child who is trying to go D1 or loves hoops, it's just kind of part of the deal. You got to do it. But the habits, especially for the boys' side, that it creates, the culture, you see the results happening now in the NBA where, let's be real here. Jokic, Giannis, Luka, if you want, and SGA, I think would all be considered better than current day Steph Curry at 38 years old. Be clear, Dub Nation. I was saying current 38 years old Steph Curry. There's a handful of guys that I think are clearly, better because they are in their primes, right? But the second thing that this speaks to is the greatness of the chef, right? The longevity of the chef. Now, he just released his first book, Shot Ready, and I had bought my daughter it for her birthday, the hardcover. I'm going to read it after her. I'm going to borrow it after her, but it was a birthday gift. And so he did a little bit of a press run. You saw him on some late night shows and different things. And he said, man, I truly believe that I'm like as good as ever. I feel as good as ever. And all I'm playing for is championships, And it got me to thinking about, kind of the unexpected longevity of Steph Curry, right? When you talk about longevity in the league and how things have changed, you can point to other athletes like Tom Brady, and it's becoming more of the norm across various sports. And then LeBron, maybe the pinnacle of that in basketball. But I think even 10 years ago, if you were to say who's going to age, well, it'd be LeBron and KD because of their size, right? And when you're looking at a 6'3" guard, it's really more remarkable than what LeBron has done and what KD is doing. When you look at the size of it, and it got me to thinking about how, Steph has never played in these huge windows. When you watch Anthony Edwards, all the separation that he creates, the space he creates with his athleticism and his strength, sometimes he has these huge windows to make shots. And Steph, the windows have always been tight, right? And so with that lightning quick release, his conditioning, his skill, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Like the windows were never huge. And so it doesn't matter if they're a little bit smaller because we're looking at not just the greatest shooter of all time. I think what gets overlooked is the greatest conditioned shooter and the quickest releasing shooter. There are a ton of players, basketball players around the world that are knockdown shooters, but it takes them twice as long to get that off. And they can't play that. They can't do all the other things to stay in condition to shoot that. It's got to be an ideal setting, right? And so, yeah, man, Steph, it's dope to see him get that acknowledgement at this stage when there's so much focus on LeBron and the new guys and stuff like that. I think Anthony Edwards is the obvious heir apparent currently right now. I think Ja was in that mix, but it's gone south here the last 2 years. His durability, his off the court issues. I think the dark horse might be Cade Cunningham. I think that we'll see what he looks like moving forward as Detroit becomes, hopefully for them, a perennial playoff team. But yeah, you look around and it's the foreign-born players. Cooper Flagg is a ways away. I don't know if he'll be, I think Cooper Flagg to me reminds me more of like a Kevin Garnett type, where he's just like a super utility, super do-it-all guy. I don't know if he's going to be necessarily dominant. I think he's going to be like Garnett, but we'll see. We'll see how his game develops. And it got me to thinking, in these next few years, this window that's closing, if you will, what is the greatest threat to Steph's longevity? And before I get into what I think that is, Prize Picks. The link is in the description. You can scan the QR code right now, pick 2 to 6 players, predict more or less on their projected stats, and cash in if your picks hit. Use code Alchemy. New users, play $5, get $50 instantly. I've been hitting on these W playoff picks, man. I know a lot of you just aren't willing to or haven't invested in watching the W, but I'm telling you, you're missing out. The playoffs are lit, and I'm cashing in with these. I've got these picks here. This is running a little late today. My bad, y'all. But if you follow along with my Prize Pick stuff, the W is a real opportunity because I'm not sure they know where they should put some of these numbers at. But for today's game 2s, I've got Queen Fee, more than half a 3. A'ja Wilson, bounce back game. I've got more than an assist and a half. They're going to have to send 2 at some point. I know Aaliyah Boston's been doing well. And then the point guard, Chelsea Gray, more than 0.5 threes. I think she's really found her rhythm from 3, and she's just letting it fly. I don't want to say these are locks, but I like these for Prize Picks today. And again, it's a great way to support the channel. Scan the code or click the link in the description. So what do you think is the greatest threat to Steph closing this out with another run and staying healthy? And you say, well, obviously it's injury. It's some sort of injury. And how does that occur? Well, I'm getting more specific than that because it's obviously staying healthy, right? Or maybe it's our front office is the greatest detriment. I don't know, that's a story for another time. But have you ever watched kids play soccer, flag football, some sort of youth sport, right? And you'll see a kid that's always hitting the ground, and they just spring right up like a cat. And you're like, oh, okay, and just like everywhere, right? And then you'll have another kid that whenever they hit the floor, you're like, ooh, that hurt. You're like crossing your fingers, they get up, right? Steph is that kid. Steph is not a good faller. And yes, that's a thing to me. It really is. Some guys they just hit the ground in a way. Again, it's almost cat-like. They slide, they roll, they tumble, and they're just good fallers, right? Old OG Warrior fans, Monte Ellis was a tremendous faller. With his speed, he would hit the ground so much and just kind of slide right back up and pop up. Ja Morant currently today is a really good faller, but when he has these apex collisions in the air, like all bets are off. Like he does take some brutal falls. But Steph, I think there are various reasons why he doesn't fall well. First and foremost, I think that he protects the ankles. In traffic, in the paint, I think that he is more willing to go to his hip, go to his back, take a fall, than perhaps come down on his feet in a bunch of traffic. And I think we all understand that, right? And then second of all, I think that he is so focused on finishing the play and finishing the shot. If you watch Steph on a lot of his drives and contacts and finishes, he's watching the ball into the hoop. He's watching the finish rather than perhaps protecting himself. And so I think that those two factors combine, he just thuds, right? Some guys slide across the floor. Steph thuds on the floor. And that really, if you look at his injury history the last few years, and I want to knock on wood, I'm not trying to jinx anything, but it was just something that got me to thinking headed into the season here, training camp opening up. Steph, at this stage in his career, I think he just needs to avoid hitting the floor. And again, a lot of the time it's his own decision to do so. It's super admirable that he steps in and takes charges. Like he takes a lot of charges. Leave that to Potts. Leave that to the young boys. I get what that represents, being Steph Curry and showing the rest of the team, this is what we do here. It's not worth it anymore. It's not worth it anymore. So I would say avoid taking charges and just try to stay on your feet. Don't take those silly tumbles down on the baseline. And I get he's protecting the ankles, but to me, it's going to be what it's going to be. Some of it's just luck, right? We know that he's optimizing and maximizing his body. It's not going to be a conditioning thing, right? The hamstring thing in the playoffs was perhaps a usage thing, right? So that there's that. They definitely have to be cautious of his usage. But I would just say, Steph, stay on your feet. It's the secret to LeBron's longevity. LeBron ain't trying to hit the ground unless he wants to. And he's a great flopper, but LeBron don't hit the floor unless he really wants to, right? And he's And I wouldn't say he's a great faller, but he's probably better than Steph at it because he's so big. He just, he's just more durable generally. But yeah, shout out to the chef for still being the greatest American player at 38 years old. LeBron, KD fans, eat your heart out. Houston, we're going to have to talk about that. I've got a Patreon, so I got a podcast coming up here tomorrow. We'll talk Rockets, little bit of Niners, Valkyrie moving forward, and some other thoughts and personal stuff, personal updates sprinkled into that. But yeah, man, shout out to the chef. Still the best in the game. But I do think that big picture, and I think we're even seeing it in the W as well, the international players are starting to surge ahead because of the developmental system, because there is an AAU that's just some money grab that's hurting the development of these players. As always, hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.